Hi class, in this video I am going to go over the brochure assignment. So what you want to go ahead and do, if you are on our homepage, you want to go ahead and click on assignments, and then you want to scroll down to the brochure assignment. So once you click on there, you are going to find the instructions. So basically a brochure is a pretty simple assignment in the sense that you are providing basic information that people need to know about a business, organization, school, whatever it is. Now, the thing about brochures that make them challenging is that essentially you have only a few seconds to attract the person's attention. If you think about it, people usually look at the front of the brochure and then maybe they open it. And then after that, if it doesn't interest them or if they can't find the information they are looking for, they go ahead and they either put it away or they read it or they throw it away. So brochures are really, again, they're deceptively simple because they provide very basic information, but this information is extremely important because it's basically information that people are looking for and information that people need. So brochures are often what somebody goes to. It's usually a document that somebody refers to whenever they want to find quick information, right? So if you go somewhere and they give you a brochure, you expect the brochure to answer the questions that you have. If they don't answer your question, then at least the brochure should have some sort of website or telephone number that you can call to answer those questions. So let's go ahead and go over the instructions. And I do mention that brochures are often associated with businesses. However, for this assignment, we are going to focus more on community resources, right? So there are two primary types of brochures, informative and persuasive. Obviously, the informative brochure are often used by nonprofit organizations to inform the public of something, while persuasive brochures typically are used for profit businesses trying to increase sales. However, keep in mind that that's not always the case. For example, a nonprofit organization could have a persuasive brochure to try to convince people to stop smoking or to stop doing drugs or to go to rehab or something like that. So even nonprofit organizations can also go ahead and have persuasive brochures, but they can also just have something like the effects of smoking on your body. That's an informative brochure. However, if they have something like why you should stop smoking, then that would be more of an argumentative brochure. So what you're going to do for this assignment is you're going to create a brochure using one of the templates from Microsoft Publisher or Microsoft Word. Now I know that some of you are more savvy and you might have some graphic design software. You can go ahead and use that. Just make sure that you turn it into a PDF or something because the file needs to be accepted by Canvas, and obviously Canvas only accepts certain files. Also keep in mind that I do not have a Mac, so whatever software you use, it has to be something that I can view through a HP PC. So, like I said, you can use whatever software you want, but I'm going to show you how to use Microsoft Word because that tends to be the easiest one. So, the brochure can be informative or persuasive, but it should focus on a local service provided to the surrounding community. So, the purpose of this assignment is for you to do research in your local area. Now I know that that is not possible right now because we are trying to maintain social distancing. So you can go ahead and research this place online. So basically what you want to think of is you want to think of places that are in your local area. For example, rehab centers, recreational centers. Do they have like food pantries? Do they have homeless shelters, bus transportation? Basically choose something that you feel people need to know more about this because it benefits the community. Maybe animal shelters, domestic violence centers, daycares, anything that you feel is local that people would really benefit from knowing about. It could, it could also be something like Doñana Community College. I know here at Solon Park, most people know about it, but there's still a lot of people who don't know that there's a Doñana Community College branch here at Solon Park, right? I know in Chaparral we also have one, but maybe a lot of people are not aware of that. So that could be something that you create a brochure for. You could create a brochure for Doñana Community College Gadsden Center or Espina Center or East Mesa or Sunland Park. Again, if you wanted to do research on that, you would just go to that website. Also, if you wanted to, and you're part of a club or something like that, or you're part of a church or a youth group, you can go ahead and create a brochure for that as well. So think about hobbies that you might have. Again, I know that right now with social distancing, a lot of us maybe are not going to those groups right now. That's okay. But like I said, you could still create a brochure so that people can be aware of it. You know, so what kind of information should be in this brochure? Well, that is up to you. Basically, think about someone who is interested in this service and think about questions they might have or information they need to know. Um, a lot of times they want to know business hours, they want to know what kind of services are provided. They might also want to know if it's free or if it costs money. They might want to know what dates the meetings are. So think about information that people might have. Also, like I mentioned previously, make sure you have some sort of contact information. Most of this information can be found at the website of the place that you are creating a brochure for. This does have to be an actual place, so please don't make up fake information. Also, you want to be careful. I mentioned this at the end. You want to be careful that you do not copy the design elements or a lot of the information from the actual, because a lot of places have their own brochures, so you want to make sure that you don't copy their brochures. Like for example, DACC has their own brochures, other businesses and restaurants have their own brochures. So you want to make sure that you don't copy it because that constitutes as plagiarism. So I also mentioned that avoid topics that promote a personal agenda, such as overtly political or religious views. Obviously, you want to select a local service that is open to anyone, regardless of political or religious views. And also just keep in mind that certain sensitive topics like abortion or domestic violence, it probably is more suitable to provide informative information just because sometimes persuasive techniques can be damaging to the person or the person might feel like they are being judged. So I would say with some topics like even like drug abuse, you could persuade a person to get help, but even that is a little bit complicated because there are some people who could be persuaded to get help, but then addiction is a very complicated, um, I guess you could call it an disease or an illness, and some people really need a lot more help. So again, with sensitive topics, be careful how you approach it. I think sometimes it might just be better to be informative, but again, you could persuade the person to receive help. But of course, like I said, you want to make sure that your tone is not judgmental or anything like that. Also, remember to avoid biases and fallacies. Make sure that your brochure has a clear purpose and support it with evidence. So, what I mean by a clear purpose is that it is clear what you intend to do with that brochure. So, for example, if I look at your brochure, I should be able to tell what the purpose is by looking at the title. So, if your brochure says effects of smoking on the body, I know that that brochure is going to be about smoking and what it does to my body. Now, if I go ahead and read the title that says steps to stopping or steps to stop smoking, I know that it's going to give me tips to stop smoking. So I know that the purpose is to help me stop smoking. Now, what I mean by support is that if the title is Steps to Stop Smoking, when I open the brochure, I might see one flap that provides information about the health effects of smoking, but the rest of the brochure should cover actual tips for me to stop smoking. So just keep that in mind that you don't want to title your brochure something like steps to stop this or steps to something or how to do this, but then you don't actually show people how to do that in the brochure. So you want to make sure, like I said, that that your brochure title reflects the purpose of the brochure and that the actual contents of the brochure support that. And of course, you also want to go ahead and provide evidence. And evidence can be, I do mention over here that you need at least two sources. So the sources that I am thinking that you could use are, for example, the rehab center, right? Like if you're talking about, you know, getting help, there's a local rehab center in Las Cruces that people should know about. Obviously, you can go ahead and go to that website and get information from their website, and that could count as a source. But also, you can go ahead and go to a health website that talks about the negative effects of opioid use or whatever drug you are focusing on. Um, and you could put that in your brochure just to tell people, look, this is what happens to you if you use opioids. And then you could provide information about the rehab center. So that would constitute two sources. So again, you're not doing a lot of like in-depth research for this brochure because like I said, brochures have very basic and simple information, but you do want to research the business, so that should be one source. And then you want to go ahead and research the topic, right? So if you're talking about food stamps, or you're talking about daycare, or you're talking about a school, or you're talking about a youth group, or something like that. Research the business, but then also try to incorporate something else. Like, for example, if you want to create a brochure about a youth group or about a club, you could go ahead and talk about, incorporate a statistic about the benefits of talking to people with similar interests or something like that. Find a statistic like 73% of people who find a hobby are happier and less stressed or something like that. So try to find statistics to provide in your brochure because again, the brochure provides basic information, but it's very credible information. Um, and usually, whether it's persuasive or informative, brochures tend to have some sort of statistic um, to basically support the information they are providing. And of course, you can go ahead and have more than two sources, but the minimum requirement is two, and you want to make sure that you go ahead and cite these sources in the back of your brochure. So let's go ahead and look at the brochure module. So I went to modules and I clicked on the brochure assignment. So if you click here, this is basically the assignment, but in a printable copy in case you want to go ahead and print it out. And it's basically everything that is in the Canvas assignment, except that, like I said, this also contains the rubric. And the rubric is actually attached to the actual assignment, except that it's at the very bottom, so you have to scroll down. So if we click on next, I have a brochure. It's called brochure assignment, but basically what this is, and if you download it, you can actually go ahead and turn it around. But what this handout does right here, actually, let me go ahead and download it. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and download it. And once it's downloaded, you can go ahead and open it and rotate. So I went ahead and I opened it, and then if you click on the rotate clockwise, it'll rotate it. So one of the things I did with this handout is I tell you what I give you some information. So I also tell you what typically each column should have. So for example, for the back flap, it says that this column folds in and is the second panel the reader looks at. Its text is separate from the inside text. You can add attractive design elements and text. So for example, keep in mind, like it says, this is the second flap that the reader is going to look like. So you have to determine what information do I want them to look at second, right? And right here it tells you that the middle back column usually has contact information. And then the front one, it tells you it opens from the right just like a book. So the front brochure will include the title of the brochure as well as something decorative. So this is the top front flap or column, and this is the one where you should put the title and something decorative. So definitely go ahead and go over this handout because it tells you what each one has. Now, if we were in class, I would go ahead and give you this handout and we would go ahead and fold it. So if you have a printer, you can actually go ahead and print it out and then try to fold it so you could see what it actually looks like as an actual brochure, because that's what we were going to do. We were going to fold it. So um, again, if you look at here, it tells you what like some topics might be, but of course, these topics don't apply to what we are doing because we're focusing on local services. So it also gives you some tips. So I definitely suggest that you look over this handout. Then, of course, I have some tips for writing a brochure, and make sure that you look at this module because it does have some helpful. So if we look here, it talks about know what your reader wants. And like I mentioned when I was going over the instructions, knowing what your audience needs to know and what information they're looking for is very, very important in order to design an effective brochure. Also, like I mentioned earlier, you want to motivate your audience to look inside, right? So the design has to be appealing and also the information has to be good information so they keep reading. So definitely go ahead and look at this. It says make it a keeper, right? Because you want people to keep the brochure and refer back to it. You don't want them to just look at it and throw it away. So that's why you want to make the information valuable. And this is something that we're going to do for our writing assignment. Now, obviously, you can't go collect brochures anymore. So I'm hoping that you maybe have some lying around in your house. Or if you don't have any, maybe you can go ahead and do a Google search. But let me go ahead and show you that assignment. So we're going to do a brochure analysis, and basically what this is you're going to analyze brochures for their effectiveness. So you're going to select two brochures. I lowered the number because again, we can't go outside, so it's going to be difficult to find brochures. Um, but we're going to analyze their design. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick two brochures, and it could be from anywhere. A lot of businesses have them. I know the Pilot and Anthony has some brochures as well. Um, Post offices have brochures. DACC has a bunch of brochures. Clinics have brochures. So everywhere has brochures. So hopefully you have some at home. If you don't have any, then maybe try looking for some online. But what you're going to do is you're going to create a chart for each brochure addressing the design choices. So these design choices are right here, and you're going to create a chart similar to this one. I know it's small, but basically what you're going to do is you're going to write down brochure, tell us what the title of the brochure is, and then you're going to list layout, color, font, picture, space, language, things like that, in a table that looks like that, in a chart that looks like this, right? So notice how it says layout, color, font, picture, and brochure is another, it's another column. So under brochure, you put the title, and then under layout, you discuss the layout. Is it, are the headers informative? Is it consistent design? Because remember, you don't want to use a header, a font for a header, and then in the other flap, you use another font. You want to keep it consistent. So then over here, you discuss color. Over here, you discuss font for each brochure. You only need two brochures. So after you've done a chart for each brochure, you're going to answer these questions. Now, obviously, you can just go ahead and number and answer these questions about the brochure. So that's the assignment that's coming up, just to get us thinking about brochure design. And in the module, I also have, I think I have a website link that talks about mistakes to avoid, right? Like bad brochures, because there are such thing as bad brochures, and they're usually the ones that are very, either the color is off or they provide too much information and it's cluttered, or there's a lot of white space, or the alignment is off. All of those things are things you want to avoid. So I've already talked about the brochure assignment. I've already talked about the, this is due April 19th, by the way, and I've already talked about the brochure assignment, which is due April 26th, and then this one right here is due April 19th. So let me go ahead and show you how to access a template from Word. So after you open Word, what you want to do is you can go ahead and go to a blank document. Now you can create a brochure from a blank document if you want to go ahead and do the columns yourself and things like that. However, Word also has templates. So all you need to do is go ahead and search for brochure, and it'll go ahead and give you a lot of different templates. So obviously pick one that is suitable for you. You can go ahead and change the colors, but again, if your topic is serious, you don't want to use like very colorful fonts or pictures or anything like that, right? You want to make sure the fonts, the colors are appropriate. So let's say I want to choose this one. So once it opens up, it's pretty much the design is set for me. So as you can see, it has pictures, it has fonts already, like the headers are already in specific fonts that make them stand out. So of course you can change this or you can go ahead and follow it, but just remember that it's important to have headers that stand out. That way it makes it easier for people to locate information. Like let's say I am looking through this brochure, instead of having to read through paragraphs and paragraphs to find key offerings, I can just go ahead and go to that section because the header labeled it appropriately. Also, for example, here, you can put a quote that you think really grabs the reader's attention, or you can go ahead and put a statistic to really grab their attention as well. If you don't feel that you want to put a quote here, you can replace this with a picture. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and start designing it yourself. So let's say I am going to write about the Sunland Park campus. I would go ahead and title it. I could put a brief description, but I'm not going to. And then, of course, this picture is a generic picture and it does not go with DACC at all. So what I can do is I can go ahead and go to Google and do a search. So I went ahead and did a Google search. Now notice how sometimes other campuses show up. Like this one is the Sunland Park campus, and so is this one, but this is the East Mesa campus. So let me go ahead and copy and paste this one. So I am just going to put copy image, and then I am going to go back to my brochure, and I am going to delete this one, and I'm going to put my picture. Now my picture is going to be small, but that's fine because I can go ahead and make it bigger. Now obviously if the picture is going to get distorted, obviously you don't want to use that picture, you want to use a bigger one. But keep in mind that you don't want to have that much white space, right? And if you wanted to, you could go back and maybe incorporate this one too. So you could even have two pictures if you like instead of just one. And that could possibly work. Right? Now, something else that you want to keep in mind is the coloring. Now, obviously, this green is a nice color. It could work, but since I am writing or creating a brochure about DACC, I wanted to reflect the DACC colors, which are blue, red, and maroon. So, to change the color scheme, I would go to Design, and then I would go ahead and go to Colors. Now, here I can go ahead and select a color scheme that is more suitable. So let's say I'll pick this one. Even though I've chosen that one, I can still go ahead and click on Customize Colors. So if you're customizing your colors, you can also go ahead and click on the little cross, and you can go ahead and do a fill. Now this would go ahead and change the color of the whole brochure. Now personally, I don't think this would fit with my design for a community college, so I will not go ahead and make the entire brochure blue, just because I don't feel that looks professional. So I hope this gave you a basic idea of how to edit and change the templates. Obviously, you can also go ahead and change the font color so that it suits whatever it is that you are, so that it suits color scheme that you want. So for example, you could make it red. Obviously, red is more for like emergency or to get somebody's attention. So maybe you want to make it a different color, maybe a darker red. It's up to you, however you design your brochure. You do have a lot of options. So I hope that this was helpful. If you do manage to find images from Google, make sure that they are free and not copyrighted. Also, something else to consider is I know right now we're not supposed to be going outside, but you can also take a picture of the outside of the place if you wanted to. Or if it's somewhere you work and you already have pictures of that place, or if you already have, you know, a picture you've taken in the past, you can go ahead and put it here, right? As long as you're safe and you're still social distancing, you can also take your own pictures. Obviously, you can't take pictures of the inside because most locations are closed, but a lot of times you could find places or you could find pictures of inside places online as well. Like especially with clinics and things like that, sometimes they do provide pictures online. So that concludes this tutorial. I know that it was rather long, but I did go over three things, which was the brochure assignment instructions, writing exercise 9 instructions, and also I went over some of the templates. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I am going to try to organize like a Zoom meeting for next week. Possibly maybe the week after that, since this assignment is not due anytime soon. And the Zoom meeting will be during our regular class time. And that way, anybody who has questions or concerns can go ahead and join. I'll be sending information on that. Maybe next week, I'll send the information so that we can have the meeting for the week after that. So please make sure that you check your emails. And if you have any questions, please let me know.